Good evening. This is my very first YouTube video. I've been a soap maker for a while, but I've never put anything online. I've recently been working on a new website to sell some of my products and thought, well, what better time than to create my first video. So, I guess I'll get started here. I'm going to be making a Castile soap using the hot process method, just so that the soap is ready a little bit quicker. Generally, Castile soap is best to age for a year or so for it to be at its very best. But by using the hot process method, we can boost that up a bit. Generally, I like to use it after about 3 or 4 months. I know that's still a long time, but certainly it's just a third of the time it would normally take. And I know some people even try it earlier than that. The soap I'm going to be making today has 100% olive oil, no other fats or butters added. Then I have a few items that I also like to put in my soap. I have 0.5 ounces of olive leaf powder. I have 0.25 ounces of chamomile powder, 0.35 ounces of green tea leaves, 0.10 ounces of stinging nettle leaf, and finally 0.5 ounces of French green clay. Now, why do I add all of these? Well, each of these have their own beneficial aspects to them. Most certainly the olive leaf powder is for color. It comes from the same tree that olives come from, so since it's an olive oil soap, it only makes sense if you're going to add any color accentuation to use the leaf of the plant that the olive comes from. The chamomile powder, it adds just a lovely light fragrance. Many people believe that it's calming and relaxing. I tend to agree with that. I know that whenever I use it, I feel more calm and relaxed. The green tea, I really like that it adds a bit of exfoliation, a very mild exfoliant to the soap, but not too harsh. One moment, my cat is trying to help. Daisy, no. My apologies. Okay, my cat's trying to play with some of the cables. The stinging nettle leaf. You can look online for a lot of the reasons people like to use stinging nettle leaf. I'm not one to subscribe to a lot of the medical claims that are made about it. I simply like the look that it gives the soap. Again, it adds to the exfoliation properties of the soap, but also adds a deep green hue to the soap, throughout the soap. And you'll see when it's all finished how it looks. I just really think it makes it quite beautiful. And these are all organic products, by the way, which I will be selling if you're interested in buying any of these. But you can get some of these things in your local supermarket, and some things, well, several places online sell them. The clay, the green clay, well, clay is great for a lot of different things, but in bar soap, what I really like about it is that it adds a silky texture to the soap. So that not only does it moisturize as it goes on the skin, but it just has a very silky, smooth feel to it. So these are just a few of the things that I add in. There are other products and some recipes that I use, but I wanted to stick to a tried and true one on this one just to show you, because I know that it works and I know that it's a really good recipe. All right, so I'm going to pause for a moment and get my lye water ready. One moment. Okay, I'm back. All right, it looks like my oil is at about 89 degrees and the lye water is at 84.5. So that's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and mix them. And by the way, I stated earlier that this was hot process. I'm only using the crock pot for the space. I'm actually going to be putting this in the oven, so it's actually a cold process oven process, just to clarify. Thanks. All right, I'm going to screen my lye water because sometimes some of it doesn't dissolve properly. So just to be sure that we get out any clumps that may be in the lye, use an inexpensive mesh strainer. It works great. Fantastic. All right. Set that aside, and first of all, do a little hand blending here. Like to do a little hand blending before using the stick blender, just to make sure that I've got a good start on it without getting it too thick a trace. This allows me to get a feel for how the oil and the lye are reacting at the beginning state. And then when I add the stick blender, I can alternate between running the stick blender and using the stick blender just to stir, because I want a very light trace. And what many of you may know or may not know about olive oil soap, when using 100% olive oil, it takes a bit longer to bring to trace than when you're using coconut or some of the other harder oils or butters. All right. Okay, so that gets it going there. I use the lids from old coconut butter containers to put my stick blender and my spatulas in. It just helps reduce a bit of the mess. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. So here we go. Burp first, get out any air bubbles that might be trapped, and here we go. And I can go ahead and turn this to off. I only had it there to heat up the oil so that it wasn't too cold to put the lye water in. So I'm just going to take my time here. And I may speed up the filming here a bit so you don't have to be bored with this process. I wanted to change the world, but I could not even change my underwear. And when the stuff got really out of hand, I had it all the way up to my hairline, which keeps receding like my self-confidence. Alright, so I'm going to stop for a bit here and just do some hand stirring. And some may ask, why not do the hot process? Why not just cook it in the crock pot for a few hours rather than doing the oven process? Well, I've got a good reason for that. I want to pour these into molds, into some individual molds that I really like. And if you do the hot process, you tend to get mashed potatoes. And you kind of sort of have to stuff it into your molds or into whether it be a loaf mold or individual molds. And it's just not something I like to do. So by doing the oven process, I can just bring this to a light trace and then pour it into my mold, into my individual molds, then put those in a Oh, just a warm oven, 165 to 175. 170 is a good place to start. And just check on it every few minutes and let it stay in the oven a few hours. And then I will turn off the oven and let it just sit in there overnight. And by tomorrow, I'll be able to hopefully take it out and have some nice looking bars. But we'll see about that. So, still need mixing here, so I'm going to turn it back on for just a little bit here. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to go ahead and add in my powdered ingredients here. So first I'm going to add in the olive leaf. This will give it that great color. So one moment and I'll show you that here. And just a tip, always do a little bit of dipping with these sort of powdered ingredients like this. That way when you turn on the mixer, they don't go flying everywhere, because these powders have a mind of their own. And any of you that have ever worked with black charcoal powder in your soaps, you're already probably aware of this. Okay, so I've got the majority of it here started, a little bit more here, and now I'll go ahead and run this for just a moment. And you do want to break up all these dark clots of powder. It's not that attractive when it's not mixed in. All right, it's getting that lovely olive green color that we associate with olive oil. You know, I just love the smell of 100% olive oil. I really just am a big fan. And I know a lot of people use olive oil pumice. I prefer just to use good old virgin olive oil. Rachel Ray would be proud of me. I always use the EVOO. I just find that, I don't know, it smells better. It seems to... it doesn't go to trace quite as fast, and it allows you to do, if you're someone who's into doing color swirls and that sort of thing, good old virgin olive oil just works great. And the pumice just kind of takes away your options there, in my opinion. Now, others may have found a way around it. If so, post in the comments section. I would be happy to hear about those other options. Okay. Now I'm going to add the chamomile powder. This adds just a wonderful smell to your soap. Yes, I use coffee filters. I buy the cheapest coffee filters that I can find. These are, I think, from like a dollar store, Dollar Tree, something along those lines. I think I paid $1 for a couple hundred of them. And they work great for this. They're good for putting your lye in, for weighing it, for measuring it on your scale, things like that, so you don't have dishes that you have to clean up. These are actually what I was real proud to read about them. They're a post-consumer filter too, so it just feels like I'm doing something a little better for the world. I don't know if that's true or not, but they sure do simplify cleanup, and that's good enough for me. Oh, and yes, I do reuse these, if I didn't say that. As long as they haven't had something caustic in them. But for things like these powders and teas, leaves, things like that, they work great. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put in the green tea. And the rest, and the stinging nettle leaf. 1 moment here, and we'll get these. Go ahead. Oops, lost one there. I'll go ahead and get these. Give these a start here. These aren't as messy as using the powders. I just like to make sure that these are distributed throughout the soap. As I said, they do add just a nice, gentle exfoliation, and I don't know. I just like the natural aspect of using these organic leaves. They smell good. They feel good on the skin. They're just great. Okay, and finally, I'm going to add in my French green clay. This is going to add such a nice silky texture to the soap. So again, we're going to do some gentle mixes here. These powders do have a way of being very messy. All right. If your sweetheart sends you a letter of goodbye, it's no secret. You'll feel better if you cry when you're waking up from a bad dream. Don't you sometimes think that it's real? Okay, we're getting close. And by the way, if I didn't say so at the beginning, you don't have to add any of these ingredients here. These are simply what I like to use. I'm making these for myself, and I do have a few folks that also like them, but I also make just a regular olive oil without any added ingredients. So if that's something you're interested in, I will do a video just for that too. But basically, it's this without these. All right. In your mind there's someone far away, butterfly, don't go, why don't you stay? You have found you have wings, and now you wish to fly. Please don't go, please don't say goodbye. Alright, that's looking good. We're getting there. I think I'm going to go just a little bit more. Oh, in case you're wondering, this is just a Waring commercial stick blender. I got this after going through a few less expensive ones. This was $80 on Amazon. I know other places do sell it, but the best deal I found was on Amazon. You look and wherever you want online, and you'll find very similar pricing. But it's a great one. I like that it has a very long stick, so I don't have to get right down in the mix, and that's especially important when you're doing a water discount if you're doing that type of a soap with a water discount where your lye is very strong. I don't want to be right down in it, and I really like that I can be away from the soap while doing this. On the dresser and my wedding with these few I guess I should tell you a bit about myself. My name is Patrick. I live in Northeast Texas. If you look at Texas, if you're looking down at the state map, I'm in the far right thumb of Texas. Okay, I think that's good. I'm good. Well, adding all the clays, sometimes you can get a false trace because it thickens up the oils a bit. So I'm going to give it just a few more moments here. And I also want to apologize. I sing when I soap. I can cut that out, obviously, for YouTube. I'm sure I should. That's another good reason for me not to show my ugly face. All right, so I'm going to get this finished up here. I wasn't born in Texas. I was born near the Los Angeles area. In Los Angeles, actually. St. John's Hospital. Back in 1962. So by doing a little bit of math, you can figure out my age. My birth mother abandoned me in the hospital. There's a story behind that. We certainly won't go into this now. The family that raised me lived near the San Diego area, and through some friendships and 7 degrees of separation, they found me and raised me. I grew up in California, around in Sonoma County, Marin County, that area of the world. Came to Texas as a young man with my parents. It wasn't a young man, actually, as a young boy. Lived in Texas for a period of time, went back to California, came back to Texas. I took care of them, actually, both of them, until their deaths. I ended up stuck in Texas. I'm not saying that as a negative. It's just that this is where the farm is, so that's where I am. I raise goats, which will explain why I do a lot of goat milk soaps. I have milk, a lot of milk. But I raise goats and chickens and guinea fowl. I have ducks and turkeys, that kind of thing. I don't have a huge property. This is about 15 acres here, but it's enough for me, at least for now. Okay, I think this is about where I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and get this put in the molds, and then we'll get it in the oven. Okay, so I'm going to start by getting these molds filled here. So here we go. This can be a bit messy. There are cleaner ways to do it, but this works pretty well. If any of you have your own tips on a cleaner way, I know some people use funnels. I know that there are people that just pick up the pot and pour it in. And I know I've got a lot of drips here. I'll clean those up obviously before I get these in the oven. I try not to overfill these. That way anything that I spill, I can push right back in. It just avoids waste wherever possible. I don't like to waste anything. Because these ingredients, as you know, can get kind of pricey. And I love this soap so much, I sure don't want any of it going to waste. And I'll speed through this. I think I'll edit this a bit for you so you don't have to sit through all this tedium here. But I'm hoping you can at least get an idea of the lovely color that the clays and the powders and the herbs add. I just love the look, the way the leaves are speckled throughout. And as I stated, it adds a real nice exfoliant factor to the soap that's not too rough. I've tried things like, I like poppy seed salts, I've used those, but they can be a little rough. And for folks that have more sensitive skin, sometimes that's just not acceptable. And I really like that this gives just that bit of exfoliation to help remove those dead skin cells and hopefully make us all look a bit younger, huh? All right. That one's a tad more there. All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to clean these up. I'm going to put the rest of this in a loaf mold and get them in the oven. The oven is at 170 degrees and the bars are in the oven. So I'll close the door and check back on them about every 10 minutes for the next few hours, and I'll be back with you. Alexa, set a 2-hour timer.
2 hours, starting now.
Okay, well, I think I should have checked on these a little more often. They bubbled up a bit here, as you can see. So this will be the bottoms of them anyway, but it's kind of an unattractive texture. I'll need to shave those. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off the oven, and we'll check back on these tomorrow. Good night. Well, it's the next day. I have already unmolded the first group of them, and I'll go ahead and unmold the rest of these. That's what I love about silicone molds, the simplicity. Now, you'll notice that some of these are a little, have some holes, a little grainy. You know why? I forgot to take it to bounce out the bubbles, the air bubbles at the end. I should have tapped my molds, and it just slipped my mind. This being my first recording, I was busy thinking about the camera and what I should do there, and forgot one of the most basic rules of soap making, and that is actually tapping your mold to get rid of air bubbles. That, and the fact also that I think I left these, left the oven on a bit longer than I should have. That's why there's this sort of a rough bubble texture on the tops here, which I will use the soap shaver and try to clean up a bit. But I'll give these a few days before I do that. Allow them just to harden up a bit more. They're pretty hard, actually. That's because of the clays. that I added and doing the oven method. So you get a much firmer olive oil bar than you would if you had otherwise just done cold process, which creates a much softer bar. All right, so that's these. What I'll do next is show you the cutting of the loaf mold that I did. All right, this is the loaf mold that I did, and I used just what was left over from doing the bars, and it wasn't quite enough to fill it, so it's going to be rather thin, I'm afraid. We'll take a look, but this will be great for doing some sample bars. Love silicone. All right. There we are. You'll see this came out much smoother than the bar molds did. And I think that's because it was on the upper shelf away from the heating element, so it didn't get quite as hot, which is good in this case. So it created a much nicer texture. So I've placed some dividers that I have for that mold onto the actual bar just to mark the edges so that I can cut it fairly even. It's better than me doing it by eye. When I do things by eye, I tend to end up with some very bizarre, unusual shapes. All right. There we go. All right, terrific. That created some grid lines for me here. This is harder than you would think. I'm very impressed with how this turned out. Right. Funny, I made all that comment about making mistakes, and I think I may have missized these a bit. But it's not about perfection. That's what I say when I mess up. All right. So you'll see that these make about a 1-inch bar. So they're a nice small bar, but these will be great for cutting into samples. Please learn from my mistakes. You'll notice here that the oval bars, these are the ones that I poured first, are much lighter than the loaf pour that I did at the end. And I believe the reason for this is that I didn't get quite thick enough trace to suspend all of the herbs in the soap. So when I poured the first ovals, it didn't get a whole lot of that. It had sunk to the bottom. Then when I poured from the pot into the loaf mold, well, we ended up with these, which, as you can see, are much darker and have a lot more of the herbs. Where when you look at the round bars, or the oval bars, you'll see how much lighter they are. Now when I put them side by side, it's quite obvious. You would not know that these both were poured from the same batch. So, what does all of this mean? Well, it means that you need a bit of a heavier trace before doing the oven pour. And normally I think that I do that, but because I was videoing and talking, I didn't pay as much close attention to this as perhaps I should have. and thus ending up with this, which these are all very usable and great bars of soap, which I'll be happy to use. Just wanted to clarify that the reason they look so different is because of that. So it's another good reason to pay very close attention to the trace of your soap when you're adding any additional ingredients. Right, well, I want to thank you all. It's been a real pleasure talking to you and showing you just a little bit about what I do here. There are certainly more talented people on YouTube who do beautiful swirls and layered patterns, and those are all things I would like to learn someday too. But I did want to share with you some of the more simple techniques that I do. In the next video, we'll be doing milk bar soaps. These are made with my own goat's milk here from the farm, and I'll actually introduce you to a couple of the moms who are sharing their milk. But in addition to that, we'll be talking about some other natural additives that you can get at your local supermarket to really enrich your soaps. So until next time, this is Patrick signing out, and I want you all to have a fantastic day, and I'll see you back soon. Goodbye.